Astronauts have perhaps one of the coolest jobs in the world. Over 560 people have made it into space, and with new discoveries and technology, it's said that within the next few years that number will increase dramatically. Interestingly, over the past few decades, some of those who have ventured into space have reported seeing some mysterious anomalies. When astronauts come back and talk about these subjects, it usually makes the news. After all, these are the people that spent large amounts of time in space, so if you're going to believe anyone, it should be those who have been there. Dr. Helen Sharman is making the news for a statement she came out with. Reported by the BBC, they said that she said aliens exist and it's possible they are among us on Earth. She said the following about the subject. Aliens exist, there's no two ways about it. There must be all sorts of different forms of life among the billions of stars. Dr. Sharman is known for being the first British cosmonaut and the first woman to visit the Mir space station in May of 1991. Her take on aliens was that they might not look like humans, and they could be here on the planet right now and we may not be aware of it. This could be because we don't have the tools to be able to see them. This isn't the only interesting comment to come from an astronaut. Going back several years ago, an account of Dr. Story Musgrave details that of a strange creature outside of his spacecraft during 2 different solo space missions. He would, however, later go on to claim that he doesn't believe the sighting itself was evidence of extraterrestrial beings, and that they were not that of alien life. According to the story, as Dr. Story Musgrave was undergoing his solo mission, he described that he had begun to observe a strange snake-like creature following his craft. He would later provide an interview in 1994 in which he would state that the creature appeared to be a living snake, and that it moved across space and followed his craft for quite some time. He believed that perhaps the creature was terrestrial, and had gotten up to the upper atmosphere to journey close to the spacecraft. Additionally, Dr. Story Musgrave claimed that such creatures were common in space, and that during any prolonged space mission it was relatively common for him to see a space snake following behind the craft. Dr. Story Musgrave would also gather clips of video footage of the space snakes, to which more closely resembled the creatures found here on Earth. Dr. Story Musgrave claims that to this day he's not entirely sure what the creatures could be, and that he has no explanation for the sightings. As of right now, the vastness of space has left it to be one of the last unexplored frontiers of the human race. With it also comes a wide number of strange and anomalous properties that even the most well-versed experts on the matter can't explain. When taking on astronauts to begin a long scientific endeavour or missions into the zero-gravity nature of space, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration takes an incredible amount of variables into account, and this is to ensure the safety and longevity of the mission. For as long as research plans have continued over the many decades that astronauts have been tasked with conducting scientific missions in space, the continued research into the effects of isolation, zero gravity in the environment of the vacuum of the surrounding space on the human mind and body have been gathered to better understand exactly what it is the astronauts must endure. Astronauts have carried out many missions on the International Space Station. For example, going back a few years ago, researchers on board were able to find out that changes of gravity do more than just affect the astronauts on the International Space Station. When the National Aeronautics and Space Administration conducted research regarding bacterial growth of salmonella in space, they found that for some strange reason the bacteria became far more dangerous after a spaceflight. Growing unrestricted in anti-gravity allowed the bacteria to become far more potent in nearly all regard, even compared to lower doses to the same bacteria on Earth. Many other strains of bacteria and viruses also demonstrated this rather horrifying behaviour, and it became mandatory and apparent that all astronauts must be completely screened for any potential viruses and bacteria. This is to make sure that a new strain is not formed accidentally in the confines of the space station. This means that though there are efforts currently being handled and made by the private space agency, astronauts can very well be subjected to far more aggressive diseases and illnesses while aboard the International Space Station, as astronauts are constantly coming and going from the facility over time. Recently, NASA scientists have come forward and said that strange flashes of light can be seen on the moon's surface. As you can imagine, this has brought up all kinds of theories. explanations so far have ranged from strange aerial phenomena to UFOs. This news comes not long after it was announced that our moon is shrinking. Scientists have said that their studies have shown that the inside of the moon is shriveled up and that deep cliffs can be found all over its surface. What's interesting is that this recent study suggests the moon could still be shrinking. The researchers have also come forward and said the moon's surface crust is brittle, and that due to the moon shrinking it's starting to break the surface. However, according to researchers, these lights have been puzzling scientists for years. This isn't the first time they've been seen, but as of right now they're not sure what the lights are or where they're coming from. It's been said though that a newly developed telescope may be able to provide the answers. Incredibly, these flashing lights have been recorded since the 18th century, and going back then they called them the dancing lights. Astronomers have even reported that other areas of the moon have been seen glowing different colours such as red. Astronaut Michael Collins said the following about the lights. There is an area that is considerably more illuminated than the surrounding area. It seems to have a slight amount of fluorescence to it. A crater can be seen and the area around the crater is quite bright. As of right now, scientists have suggested that it could be something known as lunar transient phenomena. This is when a colour change happens on the surface of the moon for a short amount of time. Regardless, researchers will be carrying out an in-depth analysis of the lights. Another story comes from Gordon Cooper, one of the most influential American heroes of the 1950s, as well as the key figure in helping to locate a number of nuclear sites all around the world, was that of Major Gordon Cooper. Gordon Cooper has been a part of a number of top-secret missions in space, with several revolving around the use of highly advanced technologies to find locations of interest all around the world. Interestingly enough, during one of his many space missions, he claimed to have come into contact with an extraterrestrial craft. During Gordon Cooper's space mission that included a solo journey with a planned 22-orbit trip around the Earth, he claimed to have seen a glowing object that appeared to be bright green begin to slowly approach his spacecraft as he viewed it through the porthole. Additionally, the approach of the object was also picked up by the tracking station located in Australia, confirming Cooper's encounter. This would lead to the astronaut eventually agreeing to take a 2-day mission in which he would work to analyse footage and evidence of extraterrestrial visitations that would eventually lead him giving a speech at the United Nations to discuss his findings. During his speech, he described later coming across evidence of extraterrestrial crafts, gathered evidence of anomalous aircraft, as well as stating the following: "I saw with my own eyes a defined area of ground being consumed with flames, with 4 indentations left by a flying object which had descended in the middle of a field. Beings had left the craft. There were other traces to prove this. They seemed to have studied topography. They had collected soil samples and eventually they returned to where they come from, disappearing at enormous speeds." Gordon Cooper would later go on to be a key figure in the alien awareness movement, and claimed that his findings and studies were being covered up by the United States government, and this was under the claim that he was a national security threat for inciting panic, despite his many years working for the government and assisting with efforts during the Cold War. Researchers and scientists have said it's likely that alien life is out there somewhere. Astronomers have estimated there's over 100 billion planets in the Milky Way alone. It's important to remember there's over 200 billion galaxies in the observable universe. This puts the chances of there being life out there extremely high. The main issue we're facing at the moment is reaching these distant planets. With space being so vast, it could be thousands of years before we're able to successfully travel large distances through space. So my question to you guys is, do you think there's life out there in the universe? And if so, do you think it's reached planet Earth? Be sure to let us know your thoughts in the comment section below, and help us by growing this community while working to solve these unexplained mysteries. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos.